Gentlemen, at your meeting in December, several of you had requested that Sheriff Harris and I come back and report on challenges we're having with recruitment and retention. So we have a few brief slides to go through, and then would like to open the floor up to any questions you may have that we can shed light on things for you.
First of all, thank you for everything you do for public safety. I know in the past 7 years I've asked for a lot, and the board has been great in taking care of our public safety. Both Sheriff's Department and Fire Department made our community a much safer place. A perfect example would be the work you gentlemen have done with me on the SROs in our schools. So for that, I thank you. I think tonight the chief and I are going to speak pretty much just about public safety. I know that there are a lot of county agencies, and I think all the county employees deserve fair compensation, but we're going to focus strictly on public safety since we're responsible for that. In 2018, Spotsylvania Sheriff's Department had 14 vacant positions. 6 of those positions were created by deputies and personnel leaving the Sheriff's Department to go to other agencies in the area that was all based on salary. I'm from the old school, as you guys know, and I was taught to be true to my school. But nowadays, it seems to be a different little thought pattern out there. You go where you can make enough money to support your family. We have made this statement before. From the time that we recruit deputies until we get them through training, we're looking at a period of 12 to 18 months before that deputy is released to full duty. This includes the hiring process, 22-week academy, 400 plus hours of field training, and it's at an approximate cost of $75,000 to each one of the deputies that we hire. And that's for the academy, the salary, for the new hire, the training, the equipment, and everything that comes along with a new hire. So when we recruit and hire and send them to school, and they leave to go to another jurisdiction somewhere normally to the north, and they can make considerable more money, I don't think a lot of the younger generation factors in the travel time, the cost of wearing out a vehicle every year, and things that accompany that, but they're looking only at salary. Of the last 2 recruitments that we have attempted, we had 208 applicants. Out of that 208 applicants, we were able to hire 6 people. And that's the obvious question with that is, why such a low amount of people? Out of 200 people, you hire 6. We have high standards for this community. And as the sheriff, I'm not prepared to lower standards. I think the citizens in this county, Spotsylvania, is a great place to live, work, and raise your family. And I don't think the public would expect me as sheriff to lower the standards that we have for this community. And I don't think any board member here would want to make a public comment about lowering standards. The pay for experienced help and retention would greatly benefit Spotsylvania County. As already mentioned by previous speakers tonight, the Evergreen study was good, did a lot for the community, a lot for the county. However, I don't think it covered every facet that we should have covered or that the study should have covered. By being able to bring experienced deputies into the county, that would allow us to cut down on training, to cut down on costs. And in order to do that, we have to be able to meet those salaries. If we hired an experienced deputy from another jurisdiction and we could place that person in our system based on their legitimate law enforcement experience, if they came in at a higher rate, a step 2 or 3, 4 higher than where they would be with their current employer, it would give us a much greater pool of possible applicants. The experienced deputies add a lot to the force. An experienced deputy can do a report in a quarter or half the time as a younger agent. You learn to deal with people. You know what questions they ask. You know what to do. You know what resources we have available, and you know how to use those resources for the best of the agency. The experienced deputies, this is one reason I try to recruit a lot of people from Spotsylvania County, knowing this is a big county, and knowing this county is a third of the battle, gentlemen. If you know that you're at 4 Mile Fork and there's an emergency call at Lake Anna, you know how to get there, you know what the best routes to go, you know the time of day, you know the traffic. And when you factor things, that's not something you can teach unless you're familiar with the area. Experienced deputies fill the specialty teams, and this is really critical to me because when you have experienced deputies that we can recruit from other agencies that have served on the SWAT team, the dive team, the K-9, the drone program, all the specialties, the SWAT team, narcotics investigation, good detectives to work in everything from child abuse to homicides. That's what we need to be recruiting. And in order to do that, if we had a step program that the chief and I will talk a little bit about tonight to bring our guys up to par with the average in this area. I'm not talking about comparing Spotsylvania County to LAPD or Fairfax County, but I am saying, gentlemen, that there are things that I think we could do to keep the retention. I don't have the issues that fire services have right now with the amount of employees leaving the sheriff's department, as I think the chief may touch on. I don't want to steal your thunder here, Jay, but I think we're very fortunate. We have a lot of dedicated employees in this county that are in Spotsylvania County because they live here, their families are here, they've gone to school here, their parents live here, and that's a great factor for us until it comes down to the bottom dollar, which is what the guys and ladies and gentlemen have to look at now to raise their families. Spotsylvania County is not what it was 40, 50 years ago when a lot of us moved into this county because we could afford to live here. A lot has changed. Public safety is growing. I think the population in this county now, a lot of it that I look at as the commuting community, are used to being in jurisdictions where they have public safety that meets their standards. They have that fire truck with the ladder in case they need it in a high-rise apartment, or they have the ability to know what is available to public safety. And as mentioned earlier by one of the speakers, I think most people are willing to pay a little bit more to have public safety at the level it needs to be at to protect this community. We are no longer rural Spotsylvania County. Times have changed a lot since I first set foot in Spotsylvania County. So I'm going to turn it over to the fire chief now, unless you want to ask me specific questions or wait until after the chief talks.
Wait till after I go. All right. As the sheriff said, we're both dealing with situations with recruitment and retention. Some of us, I guess, each of us is dealing with challenges kind of on the opposite side of the coin are the larger struggles. While the sheriff deals with a lot of challenges recruiting new deputies, we share in that somewhat. What we ended up having to do was do away with all of our minimum training requirements. So that's why our recruit academy lasts 6 months, because we're essentially taking someone who's off the street, again, making sure they're a good person that's going to be able to be successful, putting them through that training and training from the ground up. So that has helped significantly, although I would say that our application rates are not really staying up to the level that we would desire. So we are also looking at the ability to increase the number of applicants we get so that we can really hone down to those people that are going to serve the community the best. So we're continuing to work on that. Our more significant issue is that of retention. For the past 3 years, we've had about 10% turnover every year. And as a matter of fact, already in 2019, just in the past few weeks, I've already received 5 additional resignations since that time. The cost of that to the county financially, just for the first 6 months of putting someone through the academy, really costs us a little under $27,000 per person. So as we multiply that towards an average of 20 per year, you're well over $500,000 each year that's going out the door instead of retaining that value of the employee that's familiar with the county, that's learning more about the department, that's developing as they go through their positions. This does not even take into account the costs associated with ALS providers or more tenured employees that have gained additional experience of driving and operating apparatus that can serve in an acting officer's role, that are essentially serving as our field training officers. So those are some of the things that we struggle with financially. The other things I mentioned are things that are kind of the greater weakness of that to our system. What we're looking to do is to be able to provide a roadmap, essentially, for someone to progress through their pay scale. We'll get into the details about that more in a second, but realizing our employees are looking for something that they can grasp in the future. They need to have something to look forward to. A lot of our competitors, if we want to call it that are seeking those same applicants, and quite often, our employees that are being targeted for recruitment, they have a format, whether you want to call it a step system, a pay increment system, that builds that roadmap so someone knows, or at least has an expectation of what they're going to make 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. That, I think, is probably the component that is lacking from the recent implementation of our compensation program. While well-intentioned, and I would say it definitely has done a lot, I don't think it has gone to the extent that will make us truly successful. So thinking about some of the other intrinsic values that we are losing, the fire service, the way we progress through the careers is a lot of mentorship. So when I have people leaving after a few years, I have this gap in the middle of our workforce. So we've got a handful of fairly experienced personnel, usually in officers' roles, and then I've got a lot of brand new people. That turnover of 10% every year continues to eat away at that middle ground. So I lose those people that are able to operate a variety of equipment. Those people that operate that equipment are the ones that really train the other firefighters coming up. So I lose that ability to pass on that knowledge as they're going through. The other thing is, if I don't have people to replace the officers that are going to be promoting up and eventually retiring, thankfully we've got a large number of very faithful employees. It does create a leadership vacuum that I'm struggling to fill. So I'm trying to identify tools that will be able to fill that gap, maintain those highly trained, driven employees that all the ones that I talk to, I try to talk to almost everyone that leaves the county. They really love the department. They love working for the county, but they really have to look out for what's best as far as what they see for their families. And they're looking at, where am I going to be 5 years from now? Where am I going to be 10 years from now? And we don't necessarily have that in place. So what we're trying to, at least encourage discussion, is to move down the road of developing, implementing a pay increment system that essentially takes that pay grade, so the scale for whatever grade someone is in, and moves them through the course of their career from year 1 through year 25 or more of their career, and moves them through that scale. While there are longevity payments in place that have been implemented over the past couple years, we have 1 more year of that planned. That is helping, but I don't think, again, it's to the extent that a lot of the people that we have in our departments are looking for. And we're trying to find a way to bridge that gap, to give people an opportunity to look into the future and see what Spotsylvania County has to offer them. So the compensation plan that was proposed is still, of course, in a draft version, was originally presented at the October meeting of the Public Safety Committee. Following discussion back in July about concerns about turnover. So this is really not a new topic. What we're trying to do is introduce a new potential solution to the problem that we're experiencing. But this plan essentially provides that mechanism to move someone through that pay grade. Even if someone has no desire to promote into an officer's rank, a firefighter still has value and gains value every year they're in that position. They're gaining the ability to do more skills, they learn more about the county, they're able to operate more equipment, they're able to train additional personnel that are coming in. And I'm sure the sheriff has very, very similar examples of that as well. This plan would also provide, again, that ability to compete with other localities that are offering pay incentives based on prior experience. We really don't have that capability right now built into a structure. I actually received a recruitment communication to me from a county, a couple of counties north, that was offering me 60% for every year of experience I had in a career department. I think I'll stay in Spotsylvania. But that is what everyone in my department is receiving on a regular basis. As a paramedic, I receive at least monthly mailings from other departments trying to recruit me. All the people in my system that are paramedics are receiving that same recruitment effort. So it's not that our employees are necessarily going out looking, but they're actively being targeted by other localities, and we're just trying to hold on to them because they're good people.
Let me just say a couple things, Jay. To go along the same lines with what the chief is saying now, we are very proud of the special units that we have in the Spotsylvania County Sheriff's Department. And we are a leader in this area in search and rescue, the SWAT team, the K-9 program. A lot of these specialty units, we train them. So the fact that we have personnel, and it's the same with Jay's crew, that can go out and train other jurisdictions. We're getting ready to start a K-9 school now to assist our neighbors. And we do this to make the entire area safer, but it also makes Spotsylvania County safer too, to keep the surrounding jurisdictions that we assist and train. A perfect example is our communication system. We have one of the best in the state of Virginia, and we're blessed with that. Occasionally we have a little bump in the road, but our communications personnel, we just had one of the supervisors leave us to go to a local jurisdiction to be the supervisor for a regional communication system. So by having the people that we have and the quality of people that we have that have been here for years, 10, 12, 15 years, as the fire chief is saying, when we lose those people in the center of the food chain, the experience that we lose cannot be replaced. And that's the same with fire and the sheriff's department. Once it's gone, it's gone. And these mentors that want to be here and want to be part of our system that leave, and it's all money, gentlemen. It's nothing else. Nobody wants to start commuting to Northern Virginia when they can be here in Spotsylvania County, as Mr. McLaughlin will attest to. Been there and done that. But I just wanted to point out that the specialty units in this sheriff's department are above reproach anywhere in this part of the state. We have things going on right now that I can't talk about with animal control where they're working in different parts of the state. And it's because of the expertise that the people in the middle and the top of this program bring to Spotsylvania County that are offered jobs daily, as the chief was talking about being a paramedic. We have people that are specialty in all these different fields that other agencies would gladly welcome them with open arms. But if our guys can look at that comprehensive pay plan, I'll get it out in a minute, and see that 15 years down the road, they're going to be making this and they can still support their family, or 20 years down the road, even if they stay in their current position as a detective and don't try to come up the promotion chain, that they can still afford to live in our county and raise their family here.
Some of the additional things we were looking at are the ongoing complaints you've heard for years that the Evergreen plan was intended to resolve. And I think it helped in dealing with pay compression and leapfrogging, but I don't think it is a necessarily long-term fix based on the way we administer compensation based on promotions, COLAs and merits and so forth, because I think that continues to compound, and there's some current discrepancies that we're actually working on currently to try to resolve. But this, again, a pay increment program, very similar to what any of you that have been in the military are familiar with that, a STEP program, so to say. Rewards people for performance, for continued development and training, but really standardizes what an employee should be making based off their years of experience and their level of performance. Right now there's a lot of discrepancy in that within our own compensation system. Again, let me reiterate what the sheriff was saying earlier, is that this does not take away at all from what may exist in other departments in the county. You know, this may be something that could be applied countywide. All we are speaking to right now, though, is public safety, for that's our responsibility. And we want to make sure that if something was done specifically for public safety, that we are not looking to pull away funding from any other departments that are just as deserving. So we want to be very clear in that. But this would take a significant investment to get our personnel to the compensation levels that they should be in, or at least in our opinions. After that, it would basically kind of level out. You would be looking at about the same amount probably as the COLA and merit increases that you're striving for every year. But this first increase would be a significant amount that we would need to figure out how we were going to fund that, the timing of that funding associated with the revenue streams. But I think over the years, you have done a lot to invest in public safety. And I really want to thank you for that, for the technology, the equipment, for the buildings and so forth. What we're asking you now is to continue that investment into our most valuable resource, our personnel that are actually operating and responding to calls daily.
I think the key words that the chief used, gentlemen, would be performance and length of service. There is no substitute for service and job knowledge, and I think that's the biggest issue that we're facing right now, is to keep our employees. And as the chief said, I wish we could speak for the whole county, but we get calls every day from constituents and from the citizens who wants to know, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that? What's your plan about gangs in Spotsylvania County? What's your plan about drugs in the county? How many people do you have doing this, that, and the other? And we want to be able to answer those questions honestly, and we want to be able to have the resources, gentlemen, to provide the best services to the best county in this state.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. McLaughlin.
quick question. I know I've seen some of your presentation before. Have you updated the numbers at all, or do you have that available they can provide to us maybe later? Or
As far as the total costs?
total cost, yeah.
Yeah, I can give you a general number now.
Sure.
For fire and rescue, you're looking at approximately, it's about 1.5 million to get personnel where they need to be, and an additional 1.3 to get the sheriff's office where they need to be. So a total of 2.8 for initial implementation.
What's the recurring after that?
It's about 300 per department.
600,000 a year?
Yes, sir.
But that would not include a COLA at that point. That would just put you on a step.
If the COLAs increase the way they have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, I think once we get where we need to be, COLAs will pretty well take care of the rest of that. Is that correct, Jay?
Yeah, so there's different ways that could be handled. One method of thought is that a COLA would continue to adjust those pay bands every year, and then you would do an analysis every 3 to 4 years to make sure they were market competitive. That is probably the best way to kind of keep those scales up to date. But the COLA would be applied to the scale, not necessarily to the individual. So it shifts the scale, and people end up on that scale wherever they would be according to their years of successful service.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Benton.
When I was first elected, I'm going to take credit for it because I'm the one who pushed for the study, and I pushed it hard. Mr. Taylor, you can jump in and speak how you want if that's untrue, but that was one of my first things, was to push for a pay study. We got it passed. It was done. Unfortunately, and I've been a very strong voice of this, it's certainly not, I don't think it fit our needs. It missed a lot of folks. And I've certainly not been happy with it. There certainly has to be some adjustment. And I'll speak to the board here, because we go over this every year, and we talk about the COLAs and all this stuff. And for my life in employment with Spotsylvania County, it was piecemealed. And it's like the sheriff and chief said, you're getting some very experienced and knowledgeable folks that are leaving, and that's the dollar these days. The kids that these days, it's the dollar. And I don't blame them, to be quite honest, because our benefits have certainly changed with the retirement. Tier 1, if anybody is out there, you know what that is, and it's nice. And it was worth me staying for that. What it is now and what they have to go through now, I don't know. I don't blame them for probably bolting. But, you're talking about all this money that we're spending for all the training and keeping these guys, and we're not keeping them. And they're seeing it every single year. And we keep on going through it every single year. And then every couple of years we say, we need to do a study. And then the dollar signs come back and says, let's piecemeal for 3, 4, 5 years, and eventually we'll get there. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. What we've done up to since 92, when I was hired, to current date, it does not work. We're going to have to do something different, and it needs to be countywide, I think. I know there's some on here that complained about the step system. We do it with the schools. The ones in the military, you knew what you were getting each year. You knew what you had to do to get to those positions and that salary. And we're asking the same for a local government here. I know and I know the employees out here won't like me saying this, but We started the Evergreen study for whatever it's worth. We need to finish that out. But this board has got to start preparing to spend some money and getting these employees what they deserve. The amount of, the ones with the knowledge and skills and putting their lives on the line every day, that you want somebody with 1 year experience or you want somebody with 15 coming and doing whatever report you need. When your child's been raped or assaulted or something like that, how much experience is it worth to you then? That pump operator with just a couple years or 15 years. What do you want in front of your house? I know what I'd want. And I want to keep our employees. As I can tell you, having worked with them for many years, they go, this county has the best employees I can ever imagine a place having. I think we're hands down above any jurisdiction. And for what they're paid and what we ask of them is, I remember in the sheriff's office, we'd get kids in and the amount of calls that we were handling, they were just flabbergasted. They could not believe that we were handling this many calls. And they're coming from an agency thinking they're advancing them, for the money. And it's just, we're very busy. Our employees go over and above every day. Hardly recognized, in my opinion, but they do. And it's time we quit nickel and diming this stuff and piecemealing this for years that never goes anywhere and get it done. If somebody wants me to say publicly, I would support a matrix or step or whatever we need to do, but I will say it needs to be countywide because it's just not, fire and rescue and sheriff. It's all of them. So, and then of course the school's going to jump on board with that too. So we're going to have to be prepared. But I know your struggles. I appreciate what you do every day. Like I say, it's just I hope we can work out some other benefits maybe that will help. Sheriff definitely with the SWAT and all the other extracurricular things the deputies participate in. They could certainly we could design something where they could have some extra pay for that stuff. It's time away from their families, away from the kids, and it's just these are steps we need to take if we want to keep our personnel. Have we ever thought about sending out mailers too?
We've thought about everything, bake sales, mailers, the whole bit. I would like to say, Mr. Benton, when I first became sheriff and you came in your position, that you and I have had many conversations about public safety in this county, as well as other county employees, and how to keep the retention plan and keep the experience in the county. So I just wanted the other board members to know that you and I have kind of beat that horse around the neighborhood a few times. And I thank you for your support, sir.
Absolutely.
Mr. Akbowski.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, gentlemen, for bringing this to our attention. I know that it's been brought to our attention in different formats over the years in different ways, but basically it's still the same problem. We used to have a step process in the county, and once the recession hit, it pretty much went out the window. And we've never gotten back to it. And so what we're now feeling is the issues of pushing it down the road and constantly saying that what we want is an equalized tax rate. Let's live within, the money that we brought in last year. And what we're seeing is in our core services, and I'm not going to only harp on you all, because in my opinion, it's public safety and education are number one and number two. And then from there, everything else, which is federally and state mandated, sort of fills in. But it's all of our employees, both on the county side and the school side, that make our county the best that it is. I know from talking with both of you, the way that our different departments work hand in hand on multiple issues that we don't even know about, and you do it every single day. So this is not a separating or a divide and conquer. This is simply highlighting the issue that you all have that I think just speaks that to the point that other departments have the exact same issue. And so what we need to do is get on board with, the Evergreen study was fine. It was a good step to start with, but it's not the end of what we need to do to really retain the quality that we need to retain. And if we are being poached, and I know that this has happened for years with state police, and until the General Assembly finally increased, was a couple years ago, they increased pay in the area. But still, when you're at the bottom rung, you know, and you're starting your career and there is no guarantee whatsoever, and you don't see it over the couple years you've been here of any increase in your pay except a COLA here or there, you know, I don't blame anybody for looking out for their family and doing what's best for them. But in my elected role, I need to do what's best for our county and our community. And I think that it's about time that we really take this issue seriously, and we need to address it. Because if we continue to push this down the road, the bill gets bigger, the problem gets larger, and it gets even harder to get control of it. So if we do it step by step, as we've done with Evergreen, we implement it, but we let people know that we are embarking on this process that is going to take us to where we need to get to. But it's something that it's well past due, and we just need to do it. So thank you for that, but I do want other county employees and school employees to know that this is a countywide issue that we need to tackle, you know, in total, and not piece it out and play one against the other, because it's all of us working together. So thank you very much.
May I respond to that, Mr. Chairman? From day one, working with the Public Safety Committee, after it was restructured when the Sheriff's Department and Fire and Rescue started working together, it's never been my intentions or the fire chief's to eliminate anyone that works in this county, because we are a team, and on a daily basis we deal with almost every agency and every department in this county. Number one, trying to keep county employees safe, and number two, trying to deliver the services that we need to deliver. I'm a taxpayer in this county, and I don't like to sit in here and see you guys raise taxes, but by the same token, as the sheriff, I'm responsible for 128,000 people, and so is the fire chief. So when we come here as a team, as public safety, we're not trying to short schools or any other part of this county. We support everything in this county. So I just want all the other county employees to know that we're not trying to short them, but we are trying to look out for public safety. That's why we're in these positions.
Mr. Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a real quick figure from the money, the people we lose, to get them trained back, I think the total is $1.585 million a year. And from what you just told me, that we could do it for roughly $2.8 million. So in 2 years, we would paid for this program rather than having to take the chance of training more people, letting them leave. We can do this and get our money back within, I won't say back, but we'll cover less. Well, we'll spend less than if we just do anything whatsoever about it. So it's very serious that we take a look at that $2.8 million. The other question is, in your STEP program, you're looking at a STEP every 2 years?
The way it's formatted in the proposal now is every year. So that's modifiable, but looking at every year to provide
You know how the schools do it?
recency. I do not know what the schools are doing.
Why don't you check with them too? I think it'd be a nice thing, because I'm thinking of, you mentioned the military. Well, for us, it's 2 years. When you take a look at 2 years in your rank, then you move up to the next thing. So, but the important part is, you know, that 10 years down the road, if you're still here, you should be making this. And I think that's super important too.
The proposal is based off really some of our, again, I hate to call them competitors, but some of our other jurisdictions that we have seen actively recruiting our personnel. So that's why it was presented as a year. Again, that is not a hard and fast rule. I'm open to discussion on that.
Well, let me ask you, if I wanted to work for Spotsylvania And the difference was getting half my pay one year, or getting that double pay the second year out. And I really enjoy what I do in working for this county. I wouldn't worry about the first year. I'd say second year is where every 2 years you look at it, knowing that instead of getting half that raise one year and then the other half the next year, it is doable. And it comes down to, if it's the money you're staying or leaving for, then you know exactly what you're going to get, whether it be 1 year or 2 years. But I would recommend 2 years. Okay, that still gives them justification to stick around, knowing that they work.
I think the important thing, Mr. Skinner, is when you can pick up that pay scale and you can see what you're doing this year and you can see next year and the following year, and knowing that that 5-year-old kid is getting ready to start school next year, that you can afford to buy school clothes, or 18 years from now when that child's getting ready to go to college, you've got an opportunity to come up with the tuition. So I think just the fact that this proposal would give you something concrete that you can base your family's livability on is what that's what I'm looking at, and I think that's what the chief is looking at. And I think that's one of the biggest problems that we face every day with new recruits. The Sheriff's Department now is recruiting all up and down the East Coast. Out of that 208 I told you about, we get 6 qualified people. That doesn't mean we're going to put 6 people on the street. We don't know that they're going to make it through the academy or what might happen in the future. But I don't want to see those 6 recruits spend a year here, us spend several $100,000 on them, and they go to Prince William or some other agency. So not that I'm picking on Prince William.
Well, what I'd like to see is a consistent thing. I mean, since you have talked, and Mr. Yakubowski called it too, we need to be fair across the board. So, you know, I'm just, and the schools are part of this county, and if there are steps, I just think that when we look at this, let's keep it simple but consistent, so everybody knows what they've got to do to financially support it. So,
Well,
if schools do it 1 year, fine. You know, we just need to make it consistent throughout the county, so that's what I would think.
Being married to a retired teacher, I'm not going to say anything bad about the school system. I do have to go home tonight, so.
Mr. Benton.
But on the yearly increase, you're not talking 10% every year, stuff like that. What kind of percentages are you talking about?
It's actually a set amount per year to take you through essentially a 25-year career.
Versus the 30 that Evergreen has
Right,
suggested
right.
when we can retire. Public safety can retire at 25.
So it's a set dollar amount per position rather than using a percentage. And the reason I went with a set dollar amount is percentages tend to compound, and that's where we start getting some of the compression and leapfrogging. So it ranges from, at the very start of your career, being actually close to a 4% as you're moving through, and as you're finishing out your career, it ends up being about a 1.5%.
Okay.
And that's still based on performance evals all through your career. You know, if you're not productive, well, I won't get into that.
All right. And what I was trying to get to earlier is I was going to steal the phrase "master of your craft." That's what we want in Spotsylvania. You know, you talk to somebody a year out of the academy compared to 5-10 years. I mean, those folks know it like you don't really have to think. Somebody straight out at very few years, you just don't have. You're not the master of your craft yet.
That's the experience that counts.
Yep.
And in any part of public safety, that experience can save your life and your team worker's life. So that's, you know, sad times we live in, gentlemen. Let's just be honest about it.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Chairman, this program right here gives, I like to see it implemented countywide for all county employees. It gives a start and a finish to anyone's career. It's very well put together. When you can take and you hire someone in a pay grade that starts at $20,000 and it goes to $60,000 as we advertise positions, but we don't have a set number to that person's career. To get to that $60,000 mark in Spotsylvania County, it doesn't say you've got to work 20 years or you've got to work 50 years. So no county employee has nothing concrete to go on. This program, it does do that. and I support it. I'd like to support it countywide. I'd like to get our finance department to start working on this to see what it would cost us countywide to do this program. This is a compression issue with pay. It started with the recession in 2008, and guess what? County employees that were working here then, they lost the cost of living raise, they lost the merit increases, and they went through that loss. I believe it was about a 7 to 8 year period before they even got a cost of living raise back. But base pay is increased. So that guy that comes in 10 years after that guy that started in 2008, he's right there with that guy. So you got 10 years of experience, and you got a guy with 1 year experience, and they're neck and neck on their paychecks. And you can't keep people that way. And we lose people we lose people north of the Rappahannock River all the time because of pay. And it's not just fire and rescue and law enforcement. We're using construction, utilities. We're losing guys everywhere. The guys work here for 3 or 4 years, get the experience, and they go other places, and we need to stop that. So I like your program, and like I said, I'd like to see if we can get finance to take your numbers and work them in with the rest of the county employees and see what that number would be.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Nance, I'll ask, other than not enough money, do you see the main problem with the Evergreen study that it's a one-time, I mean, we've spread over 3 years, but basically a one-time fix as opposed to this structure that you're talking about that they can count on year after year?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That's what I see the problem is, the compression. And when you can't pick up that piece of paper and look in black and white and see where you're going to be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, I find that's the biggest issue with the people that leave my agency, and there haven't been that many, thank goodness. But that's the problem, is being able to know where they're going to be. And as Mr. Marshall just said, when we hire a new recruit this week that is starting at almost the same amount of money as starting pay that a 5-6 year veteran is making, that's hard to explain when the guys are looking at it black and white. So I find the compression issue to be the biggest problem.
Right. This helps provide that structure of where to place people within those grades. There's some issues within our compensation philosophy, the way it is written, that this would resolve.
And the Evergreen recommendations didn't touch that, right?
I think the Evergreen recommendations of essentially the market study, I think the grades are relatively accurate as far as where they should be. The issue is placement of people within those grades and providing that mechanism to move through them. And it's really that which we're lacking right now in the current program. The current philosophy also limits, outside of extra circumstances, when someone is promoted, the theory is each grade is a 5% increase. Our current compensation philosophy limits that to 10% total increase. So the promotion may be 3 to 4 grades. We only increase them by what's equivalent to 2 grades. So that creates the additional compression issues where we're not moving people through and placing them within those pay grades as we would desire to.
No one else has anything? Thank you, gentlemen.